Welcome to this week's edition of Mississippi Happenings. We are a progressive podcast, and we want to get the message out to all Mississippians. I am your co-host. Jim Newman, our co-host, is out today. He's, as many of you know, he's recovering from a broken arm, and he had physical therapy today, so he won't be joining us. My guess is he's in his easy chair asleep where he needs to be. But if Jim was here, I know there's two things that he would share with us. Number one, Trump wants to rename, or is going to rename, the Department of Defense to the Department of War. How's that for being Trump? And also what really scares me, and as you notice, I do look at my laptop quite a bit. We do know that Florida plans to scrap kid vaccine mandates. And also the Health and Human Services employees demand RFK Jr. resign. So in Florida, you will soon be you can opt out of the vaccines. And quite frankly, that is a scary thought. And my fear would be Mississippi could also do that as well. Now, we're going to talk about a topic that's very important to me. It affects my life, my son's life, and also my grandson's health and well-being. In August of 22, there was a report out, a federal report, and this is from Mississippi Today, August 22nd. Mississippi fails to ensure special ed students get services. And we know that Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education. We've talked a little bit about that before and what that's going to be doing. I love the article, and today joining us is Danita Munday. Danita is she's a graduate of Delta State, Bachelor's of Arts. She's has her Master of Education in School Psychology, and also she's got postgraduate hours toward a education specialist degree in school psychology. She is an advocate for children with special needs and their families. Danita, welcome, and it's so good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Okay. I love this article. I love it, and I love. You just call it like you see it, don't you, Danita?
Yes.
Good. In this report, you're quoted as say, people working within the system have been concerned Mississippi is not compliant. And this is a validation of what we have been saying for years. You go on to say, and this is, I just love this. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. You said, without that system, Monday said the state education department is taking a Band-Aid approach to special education violations. They're stepping on bugs. They've been finding out our noncompliance through complaints and writing corrective action plans to fix it for one child. So, Danita, once again, thank you for being here. And let's talk about children with special needs and their families. So talk to us about this article.
Okay. So we have been writing to the United States Department of Education for years. And when I say we, I mean advocates and attorneys and families, because we've been concerned that when we get correction of non-compliance for one child, it doesn't translate into systemic um, correction. So that's where the stepping on bugs comes from. I said that it's like your house is overrun with roaches, and instead of finding out where they're coming from, fixing that root cause, getting an exterminator, they're just stepping on bugs. And it's that idea that it's kind of whack-a-mole is what we say too, is we get this one fixed and then, something else pops up. So we can fix the same thing in one district for one kid. And the next day I go to a meeting and the exact same violations are occurring. So it doesn't make sense to us because it's time, it's energy, it's money, it's other resources that are being utilized to fix, one problem at a time when the whole thing is unraveling.
Gotcha. Um, so, um, do you feel like with this report, I get the impression that this is something that you've been fighting for years, and so this is does this give you? I guess you get validation that yes, this is something that you guys have been preaching and teaching and fighting for years. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. And so, yes, I was very excited when the report came out. I was afraid that we would not see it because they were here for their monitoring visit. The USDE was here for their monitoring visit in 2004. And then we had change of administration and upheaval at the U.S. Department of Education. And so we were very concerned that we were never going to see this report, that it just got lost in the shuffle. So when it came out, people were texting me excitedly. Did you see the report? Did you see the report? And I was like, I can't wait to see this report. And so I did. I delved into it and I was very excited about it. I was like, oh, they got that. Oh, they got that. Oh, I was I was really excited to see the things that they um, cited the state for because they're the big issues. They're not little issues. They're not band-aid issues. They're not bug issues. They
Uh-huh.
are big overarching issues to the root. Why can't y'all get in compliance in Mississippi?
Gotcha. Where and I tried to Google it. Where do you know the website that I could find that report, the 47-page report we're talking about?
You can, if you Google Part B, IDEA, USDE, DMS, 2004, Mississippi.
Okay,
It will take
fantastic.
you there. You'll get a link that will take you to the U.S. Department of Education, to the monitoring division, and they have the reports on there by years, by part, and by state. So you
Uh-huh,
can, when you get to the part that says Part B or Part C, you click on Part B. You scroll
uh-huh.
down past the list and go further down till you see the big letters Mississippi.
Got it. Okay. Okay, well, good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. There are 10 issues that they identified, and that's a lot. I I looked at all the other reports that I believe there were 19 reports for 2009, 2024. Um, and so it's 19. So they split it up. It's a cycle. States and territories were in the cycle for 2024. So I did a comparison between our report and other reports, and New York's report was pretty bad. It rivaled ours. But there were other states that had very few violations noted. I think Utah's report was 4 pages long, whereas ours is 47. I didn't disagree with anything that they found. I was a little surprised that they found some things to the detail that they found them, like the data. I sort of thought they would not be able to pinpoint the problems with the data, but they did, and made it clear that they're going to have to make some changes to collect the right data and to interpret that data and to send it to USDE so it's meaningful.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm bringing it up now. It's so there was ours was 47 pages, and you said there was 19 issues that
19 other states and territories, but there are
okay,
10, I believe there are 10 citations.
okay.
If you scroll down in that report from Mississippi, you'll see a chart. After the letter, there's a chart, and it lists the violations on the left side, and it gives details on the right.
Wow. That's, and, for, Jim and I always we talk about, the grassroots issues facing all Mississippians, and education is so important, um, and, it appears that, and we know that Donald Trump and, Linda McMahon want to dismantle and, eliminate the Department of Education. And my thoughts and people I've talked to, and we've had one conversation with Nancy Loom, and we've got another one lined up with her as well. Um, and Danita, I know that you're not an expert on this, but what would you kind of foresee some of the things happening in Mississippi if the Department of Education is eliminated?
Well, David, here's my biggest concern. As you look at this report and you see the violations that they found in our state, those are violations that they found when we were in charge. All right. So without that next tier of general supervision and monitoring, what would happen? This is a report based on our state making decisions. This is the decisions that they make that are out of compliance with IDA, that don't properly implement the regulations, the statute, the the best practices, and it's this messy now with no oversight. What in the
Uh-huh.
world? That's what we're worried about. The other thing that people don't really understand about the Department of Ed is that there are so many programs and offices in the USDE. One of them one of the most important one that we hear about all the time is the National Center for Educational Statistics. They are the people that are responsible for the nation's report card. So we hear about the NAEP scores all the time. We hear about the nation's report card. We're making decisions. Uh, we're judging how we're doing as a state based on the national report card. Well, that housed all that work is done in the National Center for Educational Statistics. So what's going to happen to that office? What's going to happen to that program? Where are our stats going to be? Where's the historical data going to be housed? And that's just one. That is just one issue, but it's a big one. The other program that is the funds flow through the U.S. Department of Education, is for training and technical assistance and research. Who's going to be doing that research? Who's going to be collecting that information about best practices? Who's going to be collecting information about our schools, about disproportionality, about kids with disabilities, about seclusion and restraints? Um, I don't have answers to those questions. I, the common thing we hear is it's going to Health and Human Services, and
Uh-huh.
that's very concerning to me. Where's the expertise going to go? Where's it going to come from if it gets moved to Health and Human Services? Where's that data going to go? Where are the experts that know how to look at that data and to draw conclusions from that data? We don't have those answers.
Yeah.
So I don't like the unknown. I, I'm afraid of the unknown.
I'm with you. I'm with you and on that, and, if we're I mean, and Mississippi is still suffering, and I'm glad you brought up about the statistics because it appears to me, my perception is that Governor Reeves likes to quote those statistics and how Mississippi was 49th in education and now we're whatever, 34th or 29th. I don't know.
Either. I know what he says, but I don't know, uh, if that's where we oh, excuse me. I don't know if that's where we really are. One of the reasons we went up in rankings this year is that a lot of states regressed. They lost points. We didn't necessarily move up a lot of points. We moved up, I think, 2 points in reading, which is far better. Let me give credit there. It's far
Yes.
better than losing points for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a 500-point scale, and we moved up 2 points. And I keep hearing that that's meteoric. 2 points on a 500-point scale, just not that meteoric to me. But other states did lose. I think the state that was just above us in the previous NAEP results fell 5 points. So, or they fell 3 points and we rose 2. So now we're 5 points above them.
Uh,
That's not so much about our growth as somebody else's failure.
Gotcha.
You got to have
Gotcha.
context. You got to see what's the relevance there. The other thing that happens when I hear about NAEP scores is that I hear comparisons between percentages. You
Uh-huh.
just can't compare percentage of growth versus for your state against somebody else's percentage of growth. Mathematically, you you can't do that. But it gets you it does get used and it does get reported. Well,
Uh-huh.
we had the highest percentage of gain than any other state. So here's my brief analogy: as I have $1 and you have $100, and I make 100% gain. Now I have $2. You make 50% gain, but you have $150. Now, do I want to be the person that has $1 in my pocket and doubled it to $2? Or do I want to be the person that has $100 in my pocket and raised by 50% and has $150? I'd, I'd rather be I'd rather be that person with $150 in my pocket than to double my growth. So it's
Yes.
not meaningful in context. I'm out of context. Let me say it's not meaningful unless you're using the correct context. And sometimes I see numbers getting compared, um, and I think, oh, that's apples to oranges. You
Mhm.
really, you really you can't do that either. Uh, my number that I look at to see if it's improving is what is our literacy rate? Our literacy rate for fourth graders, and I hope I'm not saying this wrong, from the 2024 uh, NAEP is 36%. 36% of our fourth graders are, are literate. That means 64% of our fourth graders are functionally illiterate, which means that if they read a story, they would not be able to draw accurate conclusions. Um, they can read they can read words, they can read basic
Yeah.
words, but they don't read with understanding. They're not able, to write from what they learned. And that is, to me, the statistic that we need to look at. Now, nobody talks about eighth grade. So if you look at the eighth grade literacy rate, last year, I believe it was 22%. My question that no one's been able to answer for me is, how do we teach kids to read at 4th grade and then they get to 8th grade and they lose their literacy skills? There
Wow.
may be a very valid explanation, and maybe it is comparing apples to oranges, but aren't we more concerned about the literacy rate for our 8th graders as they enter high school? I mean, we absolutely should be worried about our 4th graders. I'm not trying to prioritize 8th graders over 4th graders. But while we're celebrating those 4th graders, it's not translating to 8th grade. The 8th grade scores to me are super important because those kids are about to go into high school. And when you're looking at a 22% literacy rate in 8th grade, realistically, how many of those kids are going to be prepared to go to college or some other, post secondary setting, a work, a community college program, a trade school? If you are 22% of your population is literate, that does not translate to successful education system to me.
I'm so glad that, it's and a lot of times Jim and I learn these when we do the podcast. And to quote Paul Harvey, rest his soul, we get the rest of the story.
Mhm.
So, uh, that's greatly appreciated. This is a 500-point scale, and we move up 2. And no, we're not gonna hear that from the, Republican lawmakers, and like you say, and Nancy Loomis mentioned it before, there has been some improvement, but, a literacy rate of 36%, um, and one of the things that we talk about, and maybe you could expand on this as well, um, is that, eh, and we see it happen all the time. We know that the state of Mississippi is wanting to do school vouchers. We know that they are wanting to take away money from the public school systems and give it to private schools. And I don't understand that. I had a conversation with the gentleman, and he made the comment, "Well, look, I pay my taxes, and I should be able to send my child where I want him to go." Well, that's great. Um, at the same time, I pay my taxes to fix your streets that I never drive on.
Yes, I get it. And here's the reality. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta. I
Uh huh.
worked in the Mississippi Delta in Indianola School District for 5 years. It's, you know, it was, and they're doing great now. I like to say I did keep up with them, and they have, they really moved up in their accreditation rating. And I'm impressed with the work that they have done there. But it's difficult. We all know it's difficult. We know what that looks like. Poverty and people struggling, and moms working at night was my biggest problem when I worked in the school district. Is that my moms worked at night. They worked in the catfish industry and they slept during the day. So I mean, there's so many problems that are related to the economy and other factors. Um, but when you have a poor school district and you live in a place like the Delta, offering a voucher to a family is meaningless because there's no place for them to take that voucher. Where are they going to go with that voucher? And then when you start talking about kids with disabilities and kids that are struggling, those private programs can just say, we don't have a program for you. They don't have to take your voucher. So it feels to me, this is my opinion, it feels to me like the people that are going to benefit from the voucher are not the people that really need it.
Yeah.
It's
And
Peter
we
Paul.
have to educate. Yeah. we have to educate the entire workforce. We can't just, okay, we're going to educate your kids because your kids are in DeSoto County. We're going to
Right.
educate your kids because you're in Lee County, but we're not going to educate your kids because they're in Cleveland, Mississippi, or in Denola, or in the Delta. Um, and I know, and that's um, a whole nother issue as far as we
Yes,
talk about that because,
it is.
yeah, and
Well,
I
and
don't
let
want
me say this.
to yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, because I am a advocate of children with disabilities and their families, that I am partly in favor of those vouchers. Because when a school district is failing that child with a disability so significantly, and they can get that ESA, it's a, sort of a voucher system to go to a program to meet their needs. And people say, well, kids in general ed should have that same opportunity. Kids in general ed already have, much better resources around them. They don't have the struggles of having a disability. They don't need accommodations modifications. They don't need specially designed instruction. They don't need related services like OT, PT, language speech therapy. So I do support vouchers, but it is the
Okay.
same problem for kids with disabilities. Because if I'm in Indianola and I have a disability and I get a voucher, I still don't have a place to go that will meet my needs. I, I would like to
Uh-huh.
see money be spent on improving the resources, increasing teacher pay. And people think I'm a teacher basher. I'm not. I love a good teacher. What
Yeah.
we do without teachers, I mean, they're amazing. I didn't want to teach. I got a degree in education, but I knew I could not sit in a classroom. That was not my calling. It's a gift to be a teacher, but we don't treat our teachers like they're valuable. And again, that's another subject. But while we're on the vouchers, I just wanted to say I I do support vouchers because I've seen my clients benefit from it. Where they're in a school, they are nonverbal, they have autism, and they wander off campus and nobody knows they're missing until
Yeah.
somebody finds them and brings them back or they do a head count. That's just dangerous. Forget reading, writing, arithmetic. Those kids aren't safe. They're being restrained. They're being secluded because the school doesn't have the resources to provide the right services in the right
Mm.
way. And that's very concerning. And so it goes back to that. If we're taking money from public school and putting it in private school, who's going to benefit the most and who's going to be hurt the most? And
Yeah.
I'm vested in my kids and families, um, with disabilities. And so that I would like to see that money, those resources go back to the school to address those very real safety functional needs.
Understood. Um, on a personal note, I'll share this with you, and you can uh, help me with this and tell our listeners and our viewers, some information on what they need and what they can do. Um, I have a grandson who is special needs. Um, um, and it's um, he's in the fourth grade. He just started the fourth grade. Um, and they recently did, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right, an IEP, and that's an
Yes.
individual
It's an
education
individualized
plan. Is that
education plan. Yes,
got it?
that's right.
And one of the other things that they are doing, and yes, he's in DeSoto County, and we have an excellent school system here. Uh, is and I don't recall what I was told, but is it like someone helping him or next to him while he's in class, or what is one
It's
on
probably a
one? Is that
paraprofessional. One-on-one aid, paraprofessional,
Okay.
someone to assist him, yeah, and paraprofessionals are very important. Uh, they don't get paid a lot. They're not well, they may have a credential, but not a degree, not a licensed, educator by any means, but they're very important to keep kids safe, to help them with their daily, uh, activities, self-care, those kind of things, to get them to the right place so we don't lose them, and, so they're very important, but they don't get paid very much. They're hard to recruit, they're hard to keep, just like teachers. The same issues that
Yeah.
affect a teacher affects those support people.
Hmm. I would, assume that, with a and you said, and make sure I said our quote is right, a paraprofessional or the one-on-one, um, I'm assuming also that, yes, they're there for this child, but at the same time, they could also be a good support person for a teacher who's in a classroom with 25 or 30 kids, maybe could help out. I don't know. I'm just speculating as far
Yeah.
as that.
Well, David, this is what needs to happen when you're having an IEP meeting and the school has agreed that your child needs a one-on-one aid. You need to be having that discussion about how will their time be used, because there is a lot of unnecessary discombobulation between parents and
Uh-huh.
schools about the expectation. And so those conversations about expectations, is that one-on-one aid just for my child? Or will they be assisting with other children? Because once you say, okay, they're going to be assisting with the whole class, that doesn't sound like one on one. What are we talking about? And so think the way it should be done is to talk about services that that person will provide. Instead of talking about it's a person's not a service. We need to know what service that person's providing to address what need. So if you've
Gotcha.
got an aid in there that's there, really for toileting and activities of daily living, then that needs to be spelled out. And to say in there, she's not technically one on one. There's an aide in the classroom that will assist your child with activities of daily living. So then we are not having that expectation or that misunderstanding that this person was hired just for my child. Can you do that? Can you hire somebody for just one child? And is it possible that one child would need a full-time aide? Sure. So the conversation needs to take place about, well, what is their function? What is their role? How much time are they going to spend with my child, uh, to avoid conflict with your school?
Good. Yeah. That's good to know. And I think also earlier you mentioned that the the first. I guess I got two questions. So the first step would be the testing, and I'm
Yes.
assuming like in the third grade or maybe there's been some difficulties learning. Um, so I guess at the third grade, I guess it's say, when do they start? When do they do the testing?
Okay. So just like that definition of what's one on one, what's an aid, you have to understand the different terminology about testing. There's a ton of different kind of testing for different purposes. So I
Okay.
think that the MCAS is at kindergarten. Now, I don't want to try to talk about statewide testing because it's never been part of my job description, but this is what I see when I see
Understood.
results. Um, so we have statewide testing, we have district-wide testing, we have progress monitoring, um, we have benchmark testing. You'll hear all of these words around testing, and it's because they all have a different purpose and they use different instruments. And my biggest concern is that the data are not written clearly for parents. There's not one scale, that all of those tests could have different scales and different standards. And so you're trying to explain to families, oh, your child grew. this is a good example on iReady. That is a progress monitoring tool that schools use 3 times a year, in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. And so you'll get a report that your child has grown. The problem is it looks great on paper because the graph, from this testing to the last testing is like this, and you're like, "Oh, it's growth." When you break it down and you get into what that growth means, what you really wanna know is that growth the same as the average kid? Is that growth better than the average kid? Is that growth average? Or is that growth not up to standards? So I gained 5 points, kind of goes back to the NAEP. You know, we moved up to ninth place, but it's a 2-point gain on a 500-point scale. It's the same concept of, are we closing the gap? Are we making actual progress to grade standards, to grade level standards? Am I learning the skills? And those kinds of scores on tests very seldom tell us that. If you don't know how to analyze them, if you can't break them down, you don't know. So I've sat in meetings where families have been told, your child made so much progress. Look at this. Look how many points it came up. And I'm over there figuring and saying, oh, compared to the average kid, he made 50% progress, 50% of what the average kid. So he's never going to catch up. If you don't make average progress, you're never going to catch up. You're just going to get further behind. And that's what happens. And our families don't realize that's what's happening. They never get that picture. They get the picture, oh, look, he's growing. Well, what does growth mean? I question, what does growth mean? What does data mean? What does score mean? I question everything is, what is the real meaning of that information? But David, to go back to your talk about testing. So when we're talking about special education, we are talking about an initial evaluation. That is the first step to get your child evaluated for special education. And those assessments are very specific. They have to be given by people with specific qualifications. They're not group tests, they're individual tests. And not only that, they're chosen for individuals. So I just have to parent write a letter this morning asking for a comprehensive evaluation for a child who's never been identified. And he's in the 4th grade and can't read. And so we went through, tell me what he's doing in this area. Tell me his struggles in paying attention. Tell me his struggles with math. Tell me his struggles with reading, so that we could ask for specific kinds of tests. So, one problem is that a parent will say, well, I want my kid tested for special ed. And then they go and the school district agrees to test, but the parent doesn't even understand what the tests are for or what their area they're testing, and then they come back and say he's not eligible. Well, why not? I mean, what are they looking at? What is this again? What is the criteria? What is the standard? And why
Uh-huh.
exactly did they say that they're not eligible? Um, assessment is that's my thing. That's what I did primarily when I was working in a all I did when I was working in the public school system. If you don't have that knowledge and that expertise to say, did they give the right test? Did they interpret it right? Did they score it right? Uh, is this a test that's viable for your child? Do we need to drop back? I keep seeing baselines on IEPs of 0. Well, if you have a 0 baseline, and I asked in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, so what does the 0 baseline tell us about what he can do right now? What can he do right now in um, oral communication? And they tell me he can't do anything. And then I said, well, what about self care? He can't do anything. And we went down the list. No, it was a 0 and everything. He can't do anything. So my question was, is he alive? Is he breathing? Nobody can't do anything. And parents don't know to look for that kind of thing, right? And that's why they need an advocate. It's a shame. I,
Yes.
I, I would love to live long enough to see the day when parents don't need an advocate. Unfortunately, they will. If they have a kid with a disability, at some point they're going to have to consult with somebody who has deeper knowledge and more technical knowledge than they do. And that's where I'm a reluctant advocate. I did not intend to be an advocate. I intended to retire and work in a garden and play with my dog. But my phone just kept ringing. At one point, I had over 200 clients in a year. That's not even manageable, but it's also tells the story of what's happening. Why do this many parents need an advocate? And I don't know exact numbers, but maybe 1% of those didn't need an advocate, and what they were asking for was not something they were guaranteed under IDA. It was not something they were entitled to. It's not something that the school district had to do or was violating their rights over. And I tell them that, and I say, you don't need me. That's a personnel issue, or that's something to take up with your school board. That's something to take up with your principal. But all the others, uh, really did need an advocate, and not a little bit. The problem was huge when I would look at it, and the older the
Uh-huh.
kids were, the bigger the problem was and the harder it is to fix.
And we talked earlier about the, the 4th grade reading level. So, how would a child with special needs, because in most cases, his reading level is gonna be much lower, than the average, reader, how
Yes.
would his numbers or his reading level figure into statewide numbers as far as reading level or reading literacy or
Again,
whatever?
yeah,
Uh, okay, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Um,
Yeah, does that affect the state's numbers?
yes, it does. That was a good question. That one I can answer. Is that they do have to factor in what those results are for kids with IEPs. And there's a limited number of kids, it's a percentage that can take the alternate assessment. That they're taught to alternate standards and they take the alternate assessments. Um, One of the things that I worry about, the superintendent of education, I have not heard the whole thing yet, so I don't really want to speak without having listened to it. But what I understand is that he did say, well, we're not doing well. Our scores dropped this year. We're going to have to figure this out. But somebody said that really it was about raising the standards for the people that could take the test. And I didn't understand that. So I need to do some more work on that. So if somebody else knows about that and understands that, that'd be great to have them on and explain all of that. But going back to the
Uh-huh.
NAEP score, yeah, going back to the NAEP scores, David, our um, kids with disabilities, their literacy rate is 8%. 92% of our students with disabilities are functionally illiterate. And people will say, because of ableism, that, well, that's what you would expect for a kid with a disability. No, because only 5% of kids, somewhere between 3 and 5% of kids, have low incidence handicap and conditions. Those are the kids that have the most specialized and sometimes most significant needs. So, not every kid with a disability has that level of need. We're talking about kids with average IQ who don't read on grade level, they have dyslexia. We're talking about kids with, I'm sorry, oh, language speech kids. That was
Autism
the other
or
part. Yeah. Some of them
okay,
are
sorry.
they're only getting language speech services. They should be capable of reading. So when we talk about kids with disabilities, we're talking about all the kids that have an IEP. So we're talking about the average kids. We're talking about the kid with ADHD. We're talking about the kid with a language speech disability. Why are 88% of our kids with disabilities reading uh, at grade level proficiently? I will tell you this. This is part of what I worry about, David, and it ties back to what you were saying. Is that one time our um our goal for kids with disabilities was to be for 8% of our kids to be functionally literate. That's what we were. That was our goal. Let's see if we get our kids with disabilities up to 8% of them to be literate, which is troubling. Uh, and we were at 5%, or 4%. It was lower than 8%. And so what the state decided to do was lower our goal. We lowered our goal to 5% because that was achievable. So I caution everybody when you're hearing all of these numbers and things like, oh, we met our goal. Oh, we corrected noncompliance. But what does that mean? you know, what does that mean? And again, I am very suspicious. I love numbers. I take those numbers, I get that NAEP report card, and I tear it apart. I analyze it from every point of view to see, is this real progress? Is this really progress? What are we talking about when we talk about progress? Is it progress for everybody? Is it prog- progress for our children of color? Is it progress for our children with disabilities? And if it's not, why not? But nobody's looking at the root cause of that. Nobody's looking at the solution for that.
Uh-huh.
And why do we have that? Why do we have that discrepancy?
I love your passion. It's I love your passion, and I mean, it shows, and it shows in your mannerisms. It shows in your voice. It shows in your eyes, and that means a lot. And I think you mentioned the superintendent of education, and that is Lance Evans.
Yes,
We have invited him uh,
good.
to meet with us, and we will continue to ask him because there were several things during the 2025 legislate yeah uh, session that we wanted to get his comments on and get his thoughts. I know that he did write a letter to Linda McMahon asking that I think there was 100, and my number may be wrong, about $137 million that Mississippi had been promised, and then she took away. But I think, and once again, I don't want to misquote anything or anybody, but I think that Mississippi finally um, got that, got that
Did we?
money.
Was that money that was COVID recovery funds?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think I heard that too.
Yeah.
Go
Uh,
ahead. I'm sorry. I had a thought and I'm very ADHD. It just went away.
no, no, no. But hey, um, me too. And I wished I'd have known about Adderall when I was in college. I would have
Yes.
been a much better student. That's for sure. But
And David, we are of a certain age. So,
yes,
no, that memory
and we learned
tends to be an
to
issue.
function and get through it. Um,
Yes, we do.
and then for and I know for my kids, you know, that was if they were ADHD, there was something wrong with them. I mean, there was something. Let me rephrase that. There was something wrong with the parents because we just didn't know how to, correct our children. Now, neither one of mine are like that, but as I do have a grandson with some special
We
needs
still hear that, David.
issues.
We do. Yeah, we do still hear that. It's the blame the parent game is very strong still.
Yeah,
Um, and now we're gonna ignore science and we're gonna ignore research. So it's just gonna get worse.
it's it it's like an easy out. Blame the parents. Oh, well, they should have used James Dodson's uh, Parent of the Strong-Willed Child or something. I don't know, but I don't know where I just pulled his name out of my hat. As we are winding down, what final comments, suggestions would you like to to tell our parents uh, with kids with special needs? Any advice? What do they need to be doing?
They need to question everything. Of course, you've heard me say this whole this whole podcast, I don't believe any numbers until I look at them myself. So question everything. One thing that we hear all the time, and you said it yourself, David, and you said it about your grandson, is that we have a great school district and we have a great IEP. And I hope you do. And I do. I have a great relationship with the people that are in the special ed, the special ed staff at DeSoto, and I do think they do a great job. Um, but you need to question everything. You think your IEP looks good because somebody with authority told you it was. But is it really? Is your
Hmm.
child making real progress? Is your child having all of their needs met? Are we having behavior problems? Are we having school refusal? Is is the work that they're getting rigorous? Are we teaching to academic standards that are same for everybody? And is your child achieving similarly to those kids? And if the answer is no, or if you don't know if that's true, don't believe it just because somebody said it. They may not be saying it to lie to you, but they may not understand what those scores mean either. The other thing that we use, and parents, so important for them, is grades. Uh, I've used a Trumpism. I say that grades equal fake news. Don't worry about grades. Do not worry about those grades. What you need to be worrying about is skills. I would love to see a grading system at some point where we base kids' performance and the decisions we make for them, not on grades, but on skill development. What skills do they have?
Gotcha. That's a great. I'm so glad you brought that up. That and especially and so basically, what let me tell you what I heard and make sure that I'm right on this. So basically, it's the grades is not the main issue. The main issue is their skills. Where are they at
Yes.
now? What, and maybe I guess would one of those skills be what reading level they're at, and what skills should a special needs parent uh, uh, what skills should they be looking for as their child grows and improves?
So your IEP should have goals on uh, on the areas and the domains that your child has weaknesses on. So you're always looking to see, are they making progress toward goals? They're supposed to give you a progress report every 9 weeks. Uh, but what you're looking for is curriculum based assessment. Are they measuring that skill? So if your skill is to increase your oral reading fluency, then you're looking for an evaluation of oral reading fluency. It's the only way to tell if you've made any progress.
Great, great. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with us that you think our viewers need to hear, or anything that we need to act on, and what can we do as Mississippians to help our special needs students?
Parents always say, just treat our kids like typical kids. They have the same needs as every other kid. They need to have fun. They need to have friends. They need the same thing. They need to play. Uh, and their special needs are primarily around learning. Unless you're trying to teach them, then what you need to do is teach your kids. They're just different. They're fun, just like you. They're funny. They like to play. They like to have friends. And so just treat them the way you treat other kids. Kids actually do better with it than the adults.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, One other thing you had mentioned, I'm so happy that you mentioned this. In Mississippi, on the performance, and this is the nation's report card, you talked about that the score was, 500. And let me go back to this. In the fourth grade, Mississippi scored 219. So, and I'm so glad that you brought up, but the high score is a 500,
Yeah,
and
nobody's
so in
at the top.
Mississippi we're not even.
No, we're not.
I'm sorry.
I said nobody scores 500,
Yeah,
but that is the scale. It's a 500-point scale.
gotcha.
You know who always does the best? Department of Defense schools. Look at their scores. They're amazing.
The Department of Principals.
No, Department of Defense.
Oh, Defense. Okay, I'm sorry. Which may be kind of the Department of War, but that's a whole different story. We mentioned that earlier. So good. And in eighth grade reading,
Mhm.
Mississippi scored a 253.
Okay,
Once
those
again, out of five.
out of 500.
I'm sorry,
I said those are different scales.
out of 500.
Yeah, it's hard to compare the 4th grade. This is why I don't like scale scores because they're deceptive. So it sounds like the 8th graders did better than the 4th graders. Uh, they did not. The score that I look at is how many kids score proficient and above. And you can find that on our snapshot.
And that I just had a minute ago, and it's 32%.
Oh, is that
Now,
our that's our
yes,
kid
ma'am.
typical kids? It's 32%.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what you need to do is add the two categories together. So there's one that's proficient and one that's proficient and above. So when we're talking about
Okay.
literacy, we add them together.
Okay.
And so
Well,
when you
we
add
will.
them together, I think they're closer to 36%. Got that pulled up?
Okay. Yeah. That's good, and that's good information for all of us to have, and I do appreciate it. So, I do want to give out as we close up. I do want to give out the Mississippi FAPE Defense League, and you can reach them at Mississippi FAPE FAPE Defense League at gmail.com. Or www.mississippifakedefenseleague.com. Now, also, and I do want to make sure that FAPE, FAPE, stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. So I know that that's a good resource. So, Danita, any final comments?
David, how much time do you have?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said, you're going to have me back with a specific topic, and we'll try to stay on topic.
Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. This is what Jim and I do. We will go off into the weeds a little bit, then we'll come back. But when we go into the weeds, we find out some interesting things. And this was very good because we scored a 216. Well, yeah, you scored a 216 or 19, whatever it was, out of 500. So, but this is good, and I do. I love your analogy. I love your Band-Aid analogy, and stepping on what was it? Stepping on
Bugs.
bugs. Stepping on bugs. I was going to say frogs, but that's totally different. But so, Danita, once again, thank you so much. We look forward to meeting with you again. And if there's anything that we could do, please let us know. We'd love to get involved with this because we're talking about the Mississippi workforce. So
Yes,
thank you for being with us.
thank you.
Um, and also, uh, Jim, hopefully you've recovered. Jim, we did miss you. And as always, yes, we need subscribers. So if you like this episode, send it to your friends. Please subscribe. It is free. And if you learned something from this, and I'm confident that you did, I know that I did, and it's good to have conversations like this. But also, I will uh, become Jim here a minute and say we need donations. Uh, we need donations. We need sponsors. So please consider it. We are at Cash App, which is the dollar sign Mississippi Happenings. PayPal, we are at Mississippi Happenings. Yes, we want to hear from you. So please, comments, good, bad, indifferent, who we need to talk to, who do you want to hear from? And you can reach that at mshappenings1 at gmail.com. That's mshappenings, the number one at gmail.com. And as always, may we never become indifferent to the suffering of others. Thanks. Have a good week. Take care. Bye.